Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Big Break Show, episode number 12. And
13.
13,
It's
geez.
13, bro.
Yeah, so we're doing a special recording for you guys today. Gosh darn it. Episode 13, my mistake. I can't believe we're already in 13, but yeah.
I know, crazy.
So today we have my boy, Mr. Jesse Vasquez, the one and only from AirVenture Hosting Company. Look at him go. He is going to talk to you guys today about travel nursing professionals, how to acquire them, not just the nurses, not just the doctors, but how to actually get the contract to be able to keep your places fully booked from a recruiting agency and not have to go through websites like Furnished Finder only, or not have to deal with only one nurse, but instead you get the agency who will book your place for the traveling medical professional, which will in turn keep your place booked for almost 90 days at a time at an extremely good rate. So Jesse, what's up, man? Introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are. Most of the listeners already know who you are, but give them a little refresh, a little recap. Let them know what you're about, where you came from, and what it is that you do at the moment.
Yeah, my name's Jesse Vasquez. I like long walks on the beach and LaCroix lime flavor.
And he plays polo on his spare time.
And I play water polo. No, my name's Jesse Vasquez. You guys all know me here already. I'm a real estate investor. I also have, property management, which I've been doing for quite some time now. But travel medical is how I got involved in all this, man. Like travel medical professionals I worked in the healthcare field for 17 years, and I worked on the floors of hospitals, dealing on a business development sales level. And I would see these medical professionals coming in, and I would find out from them that they were staying in like these crappy little hotels, motels. And this was back in 2015, man, like pre-pandemic. I live in a rural area. We didn't have enough nurses to meet the demand of people that were coming in. There's only one college here. There's actually two colleges, and they both only have about 20 graduates a year. So we're only getting about 40 new graduates a year for school, for the nursing program. And a lot of the nurses don't even stay here because it's Modesto. There's nothing here at all. So people are jamming out, going to other hospitals, things like that. And the hospitals don't pay extremely well. So what I noticed, man, early on is that there was a huge need for housing travel medical professionals. And the more that I talked to the nurses, the more that I realized like there's opportunity here. And I think I've explained this to you guys before, that there's a lot of opportunity always in our backyards. Like there's tons of it. You just have to really kind of filter through and find it. And for me, it landed basically on my lap. Well, it didn't land on my lap. I had to look for it. And that's where I noticed it, was that the travel medical professionals were there. So I started asking questions like, hey, what are you doing? How long are you here for? What does that look like? You're here for 13 weeks. Where are you staying? Are you getting paid to do this? And all these nurses would start telling me, what they had going on, how things were working, and how basically, how long they were here and how everything was going. And to be honest, they were telling me all the troubles that they were running into too. And that's where I really started to realize, and I've talked about this before, if you're able to solve problems, then you're able to build something that has, a solid foundation to it. So that for me was kind of the entry point into short-term rentals, midterm rentals. I already had the idea to start a short-term rental, but the midterm thing was like, I didn't even really comprehend it until I actually started doing it. So that's kind of how I fell into the travel medical world, is being in healthcare and then seeing the clinicians that were, here already.
Right. Okay. So, all right, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions here. And you said something that kind of caught my attention. And, a lot of people don't know, because when, how we talk about short-term rentals all the time, they go, oh, Airbnb or Booking.com or Expedia or VRBO, right? It used to be HomeAway. But you said midterm rentals, right? And I want you to touch on that, because I want them to understand the importance of what that really means, right? Because if you do your structure and your model, then a lot of these guys that come and ask us questions, hey, how do I get started with Airbnb? If they really understood what short-term rentals truly are, and if they understood what midterm rentals truly are, there would be no need to use Airbnb or VRBO, right? So can you touch on the midterm rental thing and explain that really quick, please?
Yeah. So a midterm rental is a guest staying at your house for more than 30 days. So typically what a midterm rental is to me is anybody staying from 30 days to 6 months. That's what I consider a midterm rental. It's not a long-term rental and it's not a short-term rental, because short-term would be obviously like less than 28 days, I think is what the standard is for a short-term rental. And that's basically what a midterm rental is. And not only that, you guys, but midterm stays, anything over 28 days has been on Airbnb over the pandemic has been the largest growth sector for the last year and a half. So 28% of all Airbnb's revenue has come over the last 2 years has come from 28 days or longer stays. So we're already seeing a shift in the market. So now we know that Airbnb takes a chunk of money. Rafa, you have some pretty cool places. If you had somebody staying in your house for 6 months, or let's just say 3 months, that could be a $25,000 booking. Now imagine having to pay Airbnb 3% or actually 14%, depending if you're a property manager or not. That's what happens. So imagine being able to keep that extra cash in your pocket as opposed to give it to somebody else. And I always worry about sticking to the short-term rental platforms. I know they're great. You bring people on, people come in. There's a lot of eyes looking at them, right, at Airbnb. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we build a sustainable model that is not just built around that one specific thing. So if you're listed on Airbnb, like you want to be on VRBO, you want to have a booking site, you want to get into avenues that you can have somebody that could book for, 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or whatever it is. It just builds more of a protective mode around, short-term rentals going into midterm rentals.
It's funny you say that because I actually have, I think, 3 bookings right now that have been with me for a couple months now. One booked for 2 months on one of my lofts, and they paid me like 10.5 or something. So, which is cool. Yeah. The problem is that it was through Airbnb and I only get paid at 30-day increments, right? Mm-hmm. With you, from what I understand when we've been talking in the past, is if that were to come from like a contract or like a different source, you get everything up front, correct?
Yeah. That's what I love about it. So there's different ways to skin the cat here. So yeah. So if you end up connecting with the hospital and you find out, we'll dive into connecting with the hospitals and all that stuff. But the thing about the contracts is that you get paid all the sum up front, all the money's up front. So you're not having to wait month to month on a payment source, which could be a good thing and a bad thing depending on how you hang on to your income. A lot of people get a big chunk of money and they're like, oh, cool, what am I going to go do with this? I got something I got to do. Or they get it obviously month to month, but you have to really learn how to manage that once you get it, especially if you have multiple bookings coming at one time, because you can literally be sitting on 60K, from a 3 properties that book really quick. And then sometimes that money can burn a hole in your pocket that you want to go get another investment or you want to pick up a couple more, I wanted to jump in on that really quick and say that because it's when I get a direct booking, it's my favorite because I do get the entire money up front, right? Like when that contractor company booked 2 of my 1 bedrooms, they paid me $9,000 for each one. So I had $18,000 up front. I can either save that money and use it for expenses for the next, whatever, 3 months it was that I think they booked, or 2 months or something like that. 45 days, actually. I remember it was 45 days. And so what I did is I took the $18,000 and I went and opened 2 more units because I didn't have to worry about those 2 units for the next 2 months anyway. And my expenses for the next 2 months were going to be minimal. And the recurring income from the rest of my properties covered that rent. And I was able to open 2 more properties with that money. So it could be a really good thing, right? If you get a contract that says, hey, Jesse, we got 5 medical professionals coming in, 2 nurses, 2 doctors, and I don't know, someone else. And we need 5 of your places. They're going to stay here for 60 days. Here's $9,600 for each one. I mean, I would not let that money sit in my bank account, right? I would go out and open more units because, well, what else are you going to do? I mean, yeah, you need to have the security, obviously. Make sure you have the money to cover if you're doing arbitrage or if you own a property, then make sure you can cover the mortgage for the next 2 months because you're not going to have any more revenue coming in. But that money up front could be used for so much, right? You can do so much with it, which is great. So, man, all right. So now you've explained what short-term rentals are. We've explained what mid-term rentals are. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the actual contracts, how it came about. Well, we already explained how it came about, because I know you were also in the medical professional in the past and you worked in sales as well. But let's talk about how to actually go out. Like, let's let the listeners and the viewers know what can they go do right now, right? Like, what's the first step actually, as a matter of fact, Jesse, teach me. I want to get a contract today, and I want to do this as soon as I get off this call. This isn't the end. Like, how every podcast we do, hey, what's an actionable step? Well, no, I want you to teach me right now.
how can I go and start acquiring these contracts, or at least start getting my foot in the door? Because I know it's a lot of work. It's not as simple as, hey, what's up? I got units, use them as my place. Because we've talked about it. I want go into the details how I can get started, please.
Yeah. So the first thing you want to do is do market research. Just like you're with any investment, you're going to want to go in there and learn what hospitals are around you. I have a YouTube video on this, like what level the hospitals are. So there's a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3, a level 4, and a level 5. There's a lot of level hospitals. 1 and 2s are typically your high trauma units. So like there's specific travel medical professionals that come work in those departments, and usually they have higher turnover. They have more people. They have more professionals coming into them. The level 3 hospitals are more of a rural hospital, and then there's a 4 and 5 that are like super rural. So do your research first. Find out if there's nurses coming into the markets. And the way to do that is you go on Furnished Finder. And you can actually look on Furnished Finder how many medical professionals are looking for a property in your area. So Airbnb, we'll put this in the show notes on the bottom so you guys can see it. You guys can go in there and click on it and dial in your market. But that's how you kind of start breaking down. All right, now I have a possibility. So I'm going to give you an example real quick. So in my market, I'm in Modesto, and the last 6 months, there was 30,000 people that looked for a short-term rental. Keep in mind, there's only about 200,000 people here. So 30,000 people have been looking in the last 6 months, and there's only 33 whole homes. So if you have 30,000 people looking and there's only 33 whole homes, what does that tell you right there? I mean, there's huge opportunity. I mean,
supply and demand.
100%. So those are the first things that you want to look at. And then it'll also, Furnished Finder will show you how much the average property is renting for. And for me in my market, it was 3,500 plus. So you already have an understanding like, okay, cool. I have a 2-bedroom. I could probably rent it for $3,500. That's what the average is going for in the area. So that's the first thing that you want to do. Once you get your research in, you spend the time to like educate yourself on what, the travel medical industry is. Because Rafa, this is a $9 billion industry, dude. Like it's a huge industry. Like,
wow.
You probably would have never thought that the healthcare industry was a $9 billion industry, and it really is. And to compare $9 billion, that's, some of like Airbnb was a $9 billion industry. Think about it at that point. I mean, that was probably a couple of years ago, but it's a huge sector. So anyway, one of the first things that you want to do after you do the data is you want to actually pick up the phone, old school, and just call the hospital and ask for the HR department. So in the HR department, there's one person that usually deals with clinicians that they need to get into there. So every hospital has a quota per nurses, how many they need on the floor. And at one point, there's a per patient nurse ratio. That's just how it works, especially if you go into the trauma units or you go into the ICU. There's 1 nurse per 3 patients, I believe. So there's a lot of nurses that need to be added. That's why we went back to the level 1, level 2 hospitals. You have these big trauma units, these big ICUs. You're going to need to have a heck of a lot more nurses to cover those patients that are in there. That's why it's important to find out how many beds the hospital has. But anyway, I'm kind of bringing things full circle now. So you call the hospital and you just basically say, hey, my name is Jesse. I'm looking to house your medical professionals that are coming in. I understand there's a need in the market right now, and I want to be able to help your professionals come in. And these are the things that I do to make sure that, that we can house them safely, efficiently, and get them in right away. There's a shortage in our area right now, as we know. There's a shortage for properties. There's not very many rentals, and that's true for my market. And there's only 33 whole homes. And then they'll basically say like, yeah, we have somebody that does that. Let me connect you over to them. Or they'll say, yeah, sorry, we don't do that. So you have to do a little bit of legwork to try to catch that person that handles that specific type, that specific part of the hospital, requirements. Once you get a hold of them, and they're always connected to the HR department, you just ask them, what companies are you working with? What agencies are you working with to send professionals here? Because if you, Rafa, say you're a nurse on the floor or you're one of the head of the HR, I would go to you and say, hey, Rafa, we need to have 10 critical care nurses here working for the next 6 months. We're getting low on our, we were having a shortage right now. So then you would then call the agencies and say, hey, AMN, FlexCare, True Staff. I mean, there's a billion agencies. Hey, we need to have 10 people starting in May. So then you already know that there needs to be 10 nurses coming. So then our goal after we get those companies is we're going to go after those companies to try to connect with them to get those travel medical professionals to come to our property first or to even know about us first. And how do we do that? That's where it becomes difficult, right? So after you get that information, do you have any questions right now, or you want me to kind of dive into that second part of it?
Yeah, no, stop, because you're giving a lot of info and I have a ton of questions. Okay, so the first one, let's go back to it. I'm already so I signed up to Furnished Finder actually on that one the bedroom that we talked about that you keep telling me to do 30-day minimums because I want to start focusing on this specific now. I have UCI Medical Center. They do major surgeries, births, like here, like I see the helicopters bringing organs all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I know they're huge, right? They're one of Orange County's biggest hospitals, and then I have Chalk's Children's Hospital about 9 miles in the opposite direction, and they're the biggest children's hospital, right? They deal with everything from births to cancer patients to trauma, like everything. So I know I have two of the biggest hospitals here in OC next to me. So and Kaiser's there too, right? Literally within a 15-mile radius, I have 3 major hospitals. And so I want to start focusing on that. And it's crazy that you say that because I went on Furnished Finder and immediately I started getting a bunch of hits. Hey, I'm a nurse coming for Kaiser, or hey, I'm this coming for here. So I want to know first question, let's say I get that inquiry, right? That's just the inquiry from the nurse, right? That's just the nurse telling, hey, I want to stay in your place because they're trying to save some money. Because as we know, Furnished Finder is kind of like the lower end, like budget saving website for medical professionals, right? I can get a booking, but it's not going to be as lucrative or as good as if I were to get it somewhere else at a higher top dollar. How do I get that nurse to give up the information to whoever is sending them down, which could be a recruiter or the hospital? Now, that's my first question before you answer it, because you kind of gave it the answer as well, where you would say, hey, call HR. Yeah. Right? What is HR the one sending that nurse, or is the nurse, should I be asking her for something else?
So the HR department is calling these travel medical agencies and saying, Rafa, we have an emergency. We need to get somebody here stat because we don't have enough clinicians to meet the demand. Or they're saying, hey, we have people that are going on leave. We have people that are leaving. We don't have enough staff. We need to get people here ASAP to run our hospital efficiently. So then you can have these travelers are traveling right away, and then you have a time frame for some of them. So you want to go after the agencies, the actual agencies. So you want to connect who that person is. So if I call the hospital, the one next to you, and they say, yeah, we work with AMN, and there's a girl named Becky there. Cool. Becky what? Becky Smith. All right, cool. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to call AMN. I'm going to say, hey, may I speak to Becky Smith? Who am I speaking to? Oh, I'm a housing specialist, or, I'm something. So I can get a hold of that person. And this is why, like with my class, it becomes more of a teaching of a technique. And this, talking to landlords and stuff like that, there's a pitch and a way that you have to go about talking to people. And you need to have the vernacular that kind of comes along with those when you're dealing with like medical professionals and things like that. You have to kind of have that insert and the insight. So that's where I think it's really highly important. So if you're a clinician, it's already a nurse, and you're getting into this field, you have a leg up already. If you have a family member that works in a hospital, that you can just ask them, hey, talk to the clinicians that are in there and find out what agencies they're coming from. You just mentioned a nurse a second ago that's saying, hey, Rafa, I'm interested in your place, but I'm only going to give you $1,500, even though your place is $2,000. Let me explain to you why they actually do that. So all travel medical professionals get what's called per diem pay. So they basically get, I'm just giving you an example right now, $100 a day to use that for lodging, to use that for food, or to use that for, daily living activities. Right now with COVID, that's being amplified. So nurses are actually getting more than, they're getting about $5,000 a month to be able to spend on just lodging alone. So if you or I were in the same situation, I'd be like, hey, Rafa, I want to rent your place for, I know you're asking 200, I'm going to give you 15. So that's why it becomes difficult sometimes to deal with the Furnished Finder, the aspect of it. But there's also a lot of opportunity in that, because there's a lot of millennials now that are traveling in groups. There's like 2 or 3 nurses that are traveling together. They're not traveling by themselves anymore. They're not the old timers that have been doing this for 30 years and they just want to make a bunch of money in a short amount of time. There's a new kind of breed of medical professionals. They're in their 20s. They're young. They want to go make cash. They want to work with groups, and they want to travel. They just like the digital nomads. They're just staying somewhere for a certain amount of time, making a crap ton of money, and then bouncing out to the next spot. And I'll see that the travel medical professionals will come in a group. I'll talk to them. They'll say, hey, we're going to stay here for 3 months, and then we're going out to Hawaii for a month, and then we're coming back and we're doing this again. So like that's the new type of travel medical professional that's in the market now. So if you're looking at getting something, you want to get something that's more than 1 bedroom. Where traditionally our 1 bedroom is like, you just want 1 nurse and that's it, and they're going to get in and get out. That still works, but you want to think more progressively. You want to have a different mindset coming into it. There's a different type of traveler. I know I kind of jumped forward a little bit on that, but
No, you did, but you're giving good information because you're bringing up good points as towards who your customer is, right? The customer avatar for who we house, and even in the medical field, there's so many different types, right? There's the doctor who wants to stay by himself. There's the group of young medical nurses or professionals or techs or whatever they are who want to stay together because they want to jump from place to place and travel the country as they get paid. And then you have people who need to recover from major surgeries as well. Like everybody's different and it's from one field, which is crazy. But before we go any further, dude, because I still want to go back to those topics, you keep jumping ahead of me here. You said you need to know a specific like language, right? Like be kind of like know what keywords. And you said something prior to saying that where you call HR and you say this, we provide this, or this is what we do as a housing company. What are some of those things that you say? Like, hey, we're a housing company. We want to house your medical professionals. This is how we set up. This is how we set up? Or this is what we provide. Like, what do you say? Like some of those keywords that can, if I were to call, can give me a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, so I would say, I would always bring up that I worked in healthcare, and they don't ask if you're a nurse. If you just say healthcare, it's kind of like it's a unified type of group of people. So I always bring that up. So if you're in healthcare, that's great. And then I'll talk about, do you have any travel medical professionals that are coming here, quickly? Because if you do, we're able to scale fast. We can grow. We can build up. If you have 2 or 3 clinicians coming at one time, we have multiple units they can, jump into. Here's a list of what we're able to do. So we have blinds, like, the blackout curtains. We have sound machines, all the basic stuff that you have. And then I also talk about, Rafa, I have cars. So I'll have a car that will actually be available for a clinician if they come in. They're having, they're flying into the area, taking an Uber to the house. Once they get in, the car is parked in the garage for them. So, and that's a huge thing because clinicians, if you go on Expedia right now, Rafa, and you look up just like a Ford Focus, the most basic, small, compact car, you're looking at least about $2,600 a month for you to rent that car for the entire month. Now, imagine if you just had a 2014 Honda Accord. Most nurses don't care. They're just going to work and home. That's like literally what they're doing. They're working their asses off for a short amount of time. And you can rent that out for, 14 or $1,500. Now you're killing 2 birds with one stone, giving them the opportunity to realize, like, especially if you're talking to a recruiter or even a clinician, yeah, you're going to be paying a little bit more. And here's why. These are the add-on things. And then all of a sudden those wheels start spinning and those clinicians are like, oh, you guys have a car for us? You have this for us? And if you start building your business in a way that you're solving problems, like I mentioned before, that's a huge thing. Because a lot of times the clinicians, that don't have to deal with the cars. They're like literally going to your place. It's a one-stop shop. You have everything in that one spot. So that's typically what I talk about. I'll talk about being able to provide the value to them. And then, they'll ask questions like, how far is it from the hospital? And these are all like unique selling points, which I talk about. You want to go into the sales aspect of things. You want to talk about, hey, it's walkable distance. We're extremely close. We have the vehicle that's available. We have part of our cleaning crew can come out bi-weekly and clean the house. The doctor works a lot. Okay, cool. We actually can go out and get groceries for them. What do they need? Like, we can take care of that stuff, put it in the house while they're at work, take off, clean it, do whatever. So we're thinking ahead and solving problems in that aspect. So
got it. So you provide the car part of your nightly rate, or do you add on top of that for the car?
So I talked about this before. I used to just rent the car out to them directly. And that's not the best way to do it because you're not covered. You don't have coverage that way. Yeah. So we use Turo. Turo has their own coverage. I have an umbrella policy with my with which, Rafa, you need to think about doing at some point because you're starting to make some pretty good cash out there to protect yourself in case of any kind of issues. But we have an umbrella policy that covers that too, and that stuff's kind of expensive. But yeah, man, there's ways to do it, the ways to get around it, but you're exposing yourself in a lot of ways if you don't go through like a third party system to navigate that.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was just curious if you provided them the car with the rate or if you actually make them pay for the car on the side as well. But
I've done both.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. I don't want to get sidetracked from going back to your conversation because you have a lot of good info to give here. Okay. We acquire the actual solo traveler nurse. Okay. Yep. We find our airports. We find out how many beds they have, what type of level hospital they are. We call HR. We figure out who we can talk to on the recruiter side of things. Let's start there. What happens next?
Yeah. So you talk to the recruiter, just like all the things I mentioned earlier. You want to start building a relationship. Everything is based around relationships. 100%. There's nothing that's not relationship based in this business. I mean, you know that from the landlord perspective to the
Yeah.
guest relationship, everything is built around relationships. And the same goes to midterm rentals, housing, clinician. Clinicians talk to each other. They're all on the floors. They'll recommend your place. So after you talk to a recruiter, you start building that. You start giving them your unique selling points and how you can help make their lives easier. Because a lot of times when you talk to these clinicians, they'll tell you like, my recruiter's trying to find me a place, or they're trying to do this or trying to do that. So if you can relieve some of that stress off that recruiter, they're always going to go to you. You're becoming a value. You're becoming a person of value to that person always. So I always recommend like putting together an email mailing list where you just randomly send out an email every month or every bi-weekly where you just remind them, hey, I have these things going on or those things going on or a new property or new unit. But you just keep continuing to build that relationship. And you're going to talk to a billion recruiters until you talk to that one that's finally going to say, wow, or here's an opportunity, or here's this, or here's that. So it's just continuing, going after those people, continue to look for them.
Talking about recruiters, typically what goes to my mind when you say recruiter, I think of like an office that is like, kind of like the job recruiting agencies, recruiter for job agencies for nurses, right? Because essentially that's what they're doing. They're providing jobs in specific locations, but also providing housing, right? So with that, how many actual recruiting agencies is there in specific areas? Or is it one like nationwide? Is it like 40 in one city only? Like how does that look?
If you went on Google right now, and actually you should probably do this right as we're talking right now, go on Google and just type in travel medical agencies, Santa Ana, California.
All right, let's see. I got Travel Medical Agency Santa Ana, guys. We're doing this live. Let's see. MGA Healthcare Inc., Rainbow Home Care Services, Elite Nursing Services. Browse all travel nursing agencies in California. TravelNurseSource.com. Oh, wow, there is a lot. Urgent Care Santa Ana. Wow, yeah, dude, there's quite a bit.
So just the travel medical agencies, there's big ones. Like I mentioned earlier, like Amen, Flex Staff, True Staff, Aya Healthcare. There's big national ones, and there's a billion mom and pop shops. So let me just kind of bring this back to the recruiter aspect so you guys understand this. Recruiters make residual income based off the person that they hire to get to a job. So say I'm a hospital and I'm looking for a nurse. They send that out to this pool of agencies, and say I'm a little mom and pop recruiter. I can find a nurse to fit that demand of that person. I'm like plug and play. Imagine like a VA, like Rafa, we talked about this before. A VA that knows IGMS, and I grab that person, I just stick them in there. They're going to take care of that person right away, right? The same thing goes with these little mom and pop agencies, that they will actually have a specific nurse and they'll basically sell them to the hospital or sell them to whatever it is. So the recruiter's making money off of the person going, the medical professional going to that hospital. So they make like a 1% or 3% or whatever the percentage is. So just as bad as you want them into your house, those recruiters want them to go to that specific place too, because that's how they make their money. So it's a win-win situation. So that's why I'm talking about providing value to those people, because a lot of times those recruiters, they need to place them. That's their livelihood. A lot of them work based off of commission only. They're only making money based off of commission. So there's hundreds of recruiting agencies, man. Like I can tell you right now in Orange County, there's probably like literally, I'm not even kidding you, like 70, 100, maybe even more than that.
Yeah, no, I bet there are. I mean, I had 45 pages pop up right now, so I'm gonna go through them later and see what I can find and start making phone calls. It's crazy because I am gonna I'm hiring a salesperson this year to do this. I've been telling you forever. Mm-hmm. They're gonna focus strictly on this. I'm gonna put them through 3 different programs so that they can learn how to get bookings outside of these OTAs. So which leads me to my next question, Jesse. We all know how important it is to have your own personal website, but let's be realistic about it, okay? I have a website and it's an awesome website, right? I paid a lot of money for it. They did a great job with it. I haven't used it yet to get actual direct bookings. I still do my own direct bookings with my companies and my own direct network and the relationships that I have. In the medical professional world, in your industry, how important is it really to have a website, and is it 100% necessary to do so? Like, do I need to have one so that you can start handing out to people, or can you just do your own direct bookings by having that relationship with that recruiting agency?
If you were going to work with somebody right now and they're like, hey man, I got something for you, what's the first thing you're going to do? Right. So you want to build credibility and trust. So even if you have a landing page, that's all you need, is like literally a landing page. You can get that done for less than $100, and you can go on Fiverr or Upwork or any of those things to pick somebody up to do that. You can go on Wix and build one yourself, like literally super cheap. So the website is just only going to build more credibility, because people tend to do that. Like they're going to want to look something up, right? I mean,
Right.
we go on Yelp and look up freaking going to put a new tire on our car, like the basic stuff. So imagine lodging somewhere. Imagine
Right.
you having to recommend somebody. So
The reason I asked was because if you're new and you want to start this out and you don't even have one property yet, or maybe you just, let's just say you don't have one property, like you can't really have a website because you have nothing to show yet, right?
yeah, you can have a website and you don't have to have your specific properties, but you can just talk about what you're doing. You know, if you look at a lot of these people, they don't have specific things. They'll just talk about what they're doing and how they're doing it and why they're doing it. You know, the who, what, when, where, why scenario. So you're not necessarily showing your properties, but you're just saying, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and this is who we do it for. You know what I mean? So we talked about this yesterday. We talked about this with Noble. You guys will hear it in the next recording, is that you kind of reverse engineer what you're doing. You go after the agencies first, and then you get the property. You know, that's how you can do it. It makes things sometimes a little bit more difficult, but it also gets you in line with the people that you need to connect with first. The second you get a unit, you hit the ground running. You might even have a guest ready to stay in there and not even have a place to put them. So, you know, I recommend, obviously, if you're looking to get into short or into the midterm rental, you got to have something. It's usually best to do that. But if you're just wanting to educate yourself, I mean, and learn about it, I mean, you could do that too. But just having a credible website that has information, I think that's going to be key.
Yeah, I love the idea of going out and finding a guest before having the property. I've done it several times. I know you've certainly done it several times. And it's so easy if you do an arbitrage as well, because you can go and pick up a property so fast, right?
You can once you learn it, once you understand the script. But imagine like everybody new right now coming in. But it just takes that one time, right? You get your feet wet, you learn it, you get denied, and you get thrown across the room, and you got to figure your crap out. Like, that's what a lot of people need to do.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Correct. If you learn this stuff, right? Because it's one of the, like, I said this during the Noble recording, right? We're all experts in a specific thing. You're expert at getting these contracts, right? He's expert at government contracts. I'm an expert at finding locations. It just became my thing. It's weird. It just became my thing, right? We all had to learn how to acquire that skill set prior to everything else. And when you go and you find a customer prior to having the property, it's just going to make your life so much easier, right? The biggest question I get is people go, well, how do I convince the landlord or the property manager to let me Airbnb their place? And I'm like, you don't. You never tell them that you're going to Airbnb the place because that's going to get you the boot out the door, right? You got to be honest about it if the question comes up, and you got to be transparent about it. Of course, you don't want to lie. You always want to talk about the customers you're bringing in and where they're coming from and how you're vetting them, right? But imagine you go to them and they go, well, hey, you know, and you go, hey, I'm trying to lease your place out. I'm trying to do short-term rentals here. I'm doing midterm rentals. And here's the contract that I have with this nurse recruiting agency who needs these 2 units because this nurse is coming here for 90 days. Doesn't that change that right there changes the entire dynamic of the conversation with this property manager, right? With this owner, and they go, wow, this guy actually, he's going to house medical professionals in my place.
You're actually going to do what you say, right?
Exactly. You're going to do what you say, and you don't have to worry.
Like, for real.
Yeah. And then I talk about this often too, where even, let's say you go and get that contract or that booking prior to getting the location. Now it solves the problem of getting the location, because now you're going to go with something in hand showing, hey, I need this place ASAP because I got this guy coming in tomorrow and we need to set this up. And what we're going to do is we're going to furnish it. We're going to make it look beautiful because I need this person to stay here for 90 days. And I'm going to pay you the rent for the entire year like a regular tenant. And I'm going to continue working here and keeping your place in tip-top shape, right? And then after 90 days, they see how great it is. Do you think they're going to care that you're using Airbnb and VRBO to fill in those days until the next contract comes in? Hell no, they're not going to care. They already know how well you're operating and you're not lying about who you're housing, right?
Yeah.
That right there, what I just said, solves everybody's question and answers everybody's question of how do I get the landlord to say yes? Go out and get somebody before you go and get the property. And it's this way, right?
Do it. Yeah, like you're doing it legit.
What's the biggest thing I always say, Jesse, when I go, hey, well, what do you talk about to tell a landlord? I always say, hey, talk about the customer you're going to house, right? Tell the truth.
Right.
If you talk about the customers you're going to house and the customers you're bringing into that place and you actually do it, you're not going to have any problems with the property manager or the owner, because they're not going to care. You're doing what you said you were going to do. You were going to house a specific type of customer and they approved you for that, right? Yeah. They're not going to care if it comes from Airbnb, your direct booking, from a contract, from a federal government, whatever it is, right? A nurse, a hospital, they don't care because you're housing who you said you were going to say. So, Jesse, with that being said, let's go back into it and deep dive a little more into into these contracts, because it can't be as simple as, hey, I pull up Google right now. I pulled them up and I go, hey, I found an agency, and then I'm going to call. They're going to be like, I don't know who the hell you are, right? But then I provide actual info. Hey, well, here's my website. I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm housing medical. I want to be on your list. And then the lady goes, well, I don't know. I still don't know. I don't want to do it. And then I get discouraged and they hang up on me. Like, do I call back and talk to someone else? Do I move on to the next agency? Am I persistent? Do I email them info anyway? Like, what are your steps here? What are your recommendations? Let's deep dive into this. Like, how do I actually get this contract?
Yep. So you call the agency, you find out who's working there, who's handling that spot, and you just ask like, hey, who's the recruiter for Santa Ana? Who's the recruiters are for Santa Ana? And they'll say like, oh, maybe Mary. Okay, cool. What's Mary's last name? You get a Mary's last name. If you go on Google right now and you Googled Mary Smith recruiter AMN, guess what's going to pop up?
LinkedIn.
Yep. It's going to pop up some information that's going to take you right to that person. Maybe you might not be able to get her on the phone, but she's going to have a Google information. That's just how these companies work. So you have access not only on the front end, but you have access on the back end. So, some of the best things to do, some of the best ways to communicate, obviously, are phone, text, and email. Those are the old school ways to do it. And I mean, that's the best. You're communicating with somebody. But again, you have to be persistent. You just pulled up, what did you say, 43 pages of agencies.
Yep.
Now, imagine you find out who handles the recruiting for AMN in Santa Ana, and it's probably 15 recruiters. Now you have 15 opportunities to make something happen just from that one agency. And then you talk to a nurse, and they say, "Hey, Rafa, your place is too expensive, but I just want to let you know I'm working for Gold Staff Agency. They're based out of Utah. Here's my recruiter's information. There's another guy." And then you get another one. So you literally can get all these leads. The more leads you have, the more potential you have for them to close. So the bigger the funnel, the more opportunity. You have all these recruiters. You drop them in the bucket. You make all those calls, and say they don't answer, say they don't respond, say they don't get back to you. You keep persisting going forward, just like you do with the landlord, right? When you're learning how to connect with them, they don't answer. You're going to call them back. You're going to put them on a spreadsheet. I called this person at 2:45 on February 10th. And then you're going to make that call again the next week. Everything that we're doing in our business is all about consistency. When it comes to short-term rentals, you're talking about turnover. You're talking about guest communication. You're talking about adding new products. You're talking about stocking things. Everything that we're doing is about consistency. Why would you leave that portion out? Like, that's how you build a good business, is being consistent with what you're doing. And that's how you build a good, your mentality needs to be consistent. You call a landlord, they hang up. All right, cool. Rub the dirt on it and go to the next one. That's how you need to look at business. And it's a mindset thing. We talk about this all the freaking time. It's having that grit and that tenacity to continue to do something even though you're not getting results from it. But the more opportunity you have, the more that you see that in a bigger picture of that, there's an abundance of opportunity around me right now. I just have to actually go out and do the work to try to catch these people to do things. And I might not catch them on the phone, and I might not catch them on the text, but I might catch them on the back end on email, or I might catch them on the back end through LinkedIn. So there's different ways to skin the cat. And there's not only one way to connect. So just think about that. You get 10 recruiters. Each one of those I just gave you 3 opportunities to connect with them on the phone, on email, or a direct line number or text. So do 10 times 3. What is that? 30. So there's 30 different opportunities to connect with the person just off those 10 leads that you get. Imagine you do that every single day, bro. You get 10 new people a day, right?
Yeah.
That's 3,000 a month.
You got to go down and do the dirty work right up front so it can pay off later, for sure. 100%. Okay.
Yeah. We just talked about that earlier with the YouTube stuff. And you're just like, man, if you don't like doing it, like, why are you doing it? Everything that I'm doing now is going to set me up for the future. All the little things that you do today are going to set you up for later on. And that's the way I look at it. Like, yeah, it might be cumbersome and time consuming and it's a pain in the ass. But once you get that one recruiter, you can send that guy an email every month or that woman an email every month, and they'll send you people and you're taking care of them. And it's just, we talked about this again the other day. It's that one decision that you do that changes your entire life, your trajectory of your business. It's just that one relationship that just, boom, sparks it. And that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I do. I guess now, I mean, how often do these, let's say I go out and I end up getting on the phone with someone. How often do these contracts actually come in with these recruiting agencies? Like what's in a 12-month time frame, like, are you constantly getting them one after the other, after the other, after the other? Or is it like one for 3 months and then like a vacancy for like a month, or like how does that look?
Yeah. So there'll be months where you get a ton of them coming in. There'll be months where there's nothing happening. But since COVID, it's really amplified things a lot. So, and you guys have heard me talk about this before, Rafa. We'd have Clubhouse rooms about this. COVID amplified the nursing shortage that we have in the U.S. right now. So California, Texas, North Carolina, Florida, and there's one more state, Chicago, Illinois. Those states alone have the highest nursing shortage out of any state, and New York too, the highest nursing shortage. So the National Registry for Nurses, I forget what it's called, National Registration for Nurses. I'll look it up, the actual code. But anyway, they don't predict that those states are going to be back to pre-pandemic levels until 2030. So this is a national registry for nurses. So if you look at that, you know that you're going to have a shortage for this amount of time. Imagine right now, you know that Airbnb is going to be good for the next 8 years. That's going to like calm me down a little bit. Okay, cool. Like I'm not having to worry about getting into multiple different businesses. I can have this business for the next 8 years and feel good and grow it and build enough revenue and build enough cash flow that I could buy more properties and build something out of it. So that's the way I look at this now, is that you got to have an exit plan, but I want to be able to have longevity that comes along with it. So if you're in one of those states, you have opportunity because of that specific fact. It gives you a roadway for longevity, a long roadway.
You know, I love that idea, because another question that people always ask me is like, hey, do you think that, like you see it even in our Facebook group, people are always asking like, hey, do you think these 30-day minimum markets are good? Because like, what if Airbnb, like it gets banned in the city? And I'm like, Jesse, you just gave the answer, right? Like midterm medical professional work will be around for years to come, right?
Well, not only that, Rafa, we just talked about a second ago, dude, 28% of Airbnb's revenue, and this is public data, you can go in and look at this, Airbnb has their financials that come out. 28% of that revenue, I forget, it was like $998 billion or something. 28% of that came from 28 days or longer stays. So we're just talking about nurses right now. We're not even talking about business travelers that are working remotely. We're not talking about digital nomads. So our market is shifting. Now, whether you shift with it or not, that's on you. But the signs are right in front of us, and they're on paper, financially. They're financial statements.
Well, people want to live in different places for long term now. There's no more like, let me buy a house. Like that dream is gone with the new generation, right? Like no younger, like the data's out there. Younger kids, what is it, Generation Z or whatever, the new generation. Yeah. They don't want to buy a house and live in the house in one city for the rest of their life like the parents did, right? They want to live in different places, travel from place to place, experience the world. I mean, you know, we could get real dark with it. The world's going to die soon, all of that stuff. And they want to experience it. Just kidding. But, you know, they want to experience the world, and they want to live in specific places at a specific amount of time. And that's perfect, right? You provide a furnished rental for 30 days at a time, 6 months at a time, whatever it could be, at a premium, right? It's cheaper to live in a place at a premium than to go out and rent the place, furnish it entirely, and then have to move and sell all your stuff off at a super discounted rate, right?
Think about this. So those companies like Facebook, Google, Meta, whatever the hell it's called, all these big giant companies, Oracle, and a way to attract people is to say like, hey, Rafa, I'm going to have you come work for me. I'm going to pay you a salary, but I'm also going to pay for your housing. So the same concept that you have for nurses, this is what's happening in those sectors, in that tech sector, or in those, you know, Tesla. They're actually giving these people per diem pay, so that's part of their pay. They're getting to go live in Austin, Texas, you know, in a 2-bedroom for, you know, $4,000, and, you know, Tesla's paying for it or Google's paying for it. And you know why? Because they're getting rid of all the freaking space that they had that they don't need anymore. Zoom, right? Teletechnology. We don't need to have we don't need to go to the office and have a meeting anymore. Like, we don't need to have all the space that we had. We had, you know, 20-story building. Like, the banks don't need that anymore, right? Like, everything's changing. Everything with that whole thing is changing. So there's more money to be used in different areas.
Who was doing that? Our boy Mac, right? He opened up like 100 units in Seattle because of the Facebook interns that they were coming in, and they were paying everything for him, right? He killed it out there, right? So, okay, cool, man. Yeah, dude, this is pretty good stuff. Like, I know we can go on for hours about this because you're giving like just a general overview of it, right? There's details. Yeah. I know you have the class. And you go into like what to say, where to go. Let's talk about your class for a second. What do you actually provide in the class? So if somebody listening is actually interested and they go, hey, I actually want to learn about this, because like even me, I'm interested and I want to learn about this. And I talk to you all the time, and like I pick up everything you talk about, but I'm so busy doing a bunch of stuff at the same time. This is why I'm hiring someone to focus on just this. What will they learn exactly? Because I saw your Instagram post about you recording your new master class. What will they learn exactly? What skills are they going to take away from them? And will they be able to go out and do this like immediately after this recording?
Definitely. Yeah. So the biggest thing is learning the markets to go after, learning how to talk to these specific people. Again, going back to sales, a lot of this is learning sales techniques on how to, and if you guys look at all the arbitrage, those, there's 100 billion different coaches and they all go around the same thing. It's how to connect with people, how to bring value. I'm doing that too, but I'm breaking it down even on a more granular level. So we have a playbook. So the second you guys are done with our class, you'll have an actual playbook of information that you go through, who to talk to, what to talk about. You guys will actually hear me making calls to the hospital, talking to people, talking to recruiters on the phone. So you get like actual live conversations on how I react and and that's the feedback that I get from the classmates, or the mentees. I don't really call myself a coach. I don't think I'm a coach. I'm more of a mentor. Because I'm old and I have gray hair and stuff like that. So that's probably part of it. But I call them mentees because like I'm actually mentoring them through this entire process on how to actually do this. I'm not like, sideline cheering them the whole time. They get 3 weeks with me and then that's it. And they're cut loose and I'll talk to them here and there. But they get a playbook that they can walk away with, tangible information, the phone calls, hearing me live do these calls. If one of my classmates gets a hold of a recruiter, I'll call them. I'll be the one to call and be like, hey, give me that number. Let me call them. I'll call them live on my class. Like I'll actually give them a call and let them hear what I have going on, how I speak, how I talk, all those things. So I try to immerse myself in the students to see that this is possible. And even if we don't get a contract today, guess what? At least I got a recruiter's information, because that recruiter is going to go a heck of a further way or more in depth than sometimes a contract, because it's a relationship based. A contract's just a piece of paper saying, here we go, Rafa, we're going to do this for you. But a relationship is way more, it's way deeper. It's based off of trust. It's based on understanding, and obviously the friendship part of it. And people want to help other people do well, especially if you're helping them with, taking a load off of whatever they have going on, making their jobs easier. So yeah, man, I mean, the students get opportunity to have that, and they get the playbooks and, a general actual breakdown of what the class is in a granular aspect. Actually, I think it's too much information in a short amount of time, but it is what it is. They have access to the recordings.
Yeah, it's a lot of good details, right? I've seen some of your guys, some of your mentees that have talked about it, and some of them we're friends with that were like impressed and like nothing but good things to say. So that's cool. You said something that really caught my attention, man. And because we can all take this and start doing this, because you gave some really good actionable steps in this podcast. And we can all go out and acquire these contracts, so to speak, and just say, hey, I'm Rafa, 9 Ring Properties. I'm a housing company. I want to provide furnished rentals for your medical professionals coming into this hospital. How can I get on whatever the list, or what are you actually speaking of? Do you say, how can I get on your list, or how can I get on your database? How does that, just answer that one really quick, because I don't want to lose touch of my point here.
Yeah, I'll ask him do you guys have a preferred providers list? Do you have a preferred housing list? And a lot of times these agencies do. So in order for you to actually get on that preferred provider list, you have to actually house somebody there, and they'll give like a recommendation, like, yeah, it's good, or no, it's not good. So that recruiter, that's why the nurses and the recruiter relationship is so important. And that's why you need to be that synergy, or that like trifecta as part of all three of those.
Got it.
So,
okay. Well, okay, cool. I appreciate you answering that. So then I say that, and then they say, yeah, cool. And then I get the contract, right? But once we get that contract, that's not the end all, right? Like they're not going to choose. They have hundreds of people that they can pick their places to stay at. They're not going to say, well, we got Rafa now. Let's just start giving him all our business because he's a cool guy and he called and he offered it. They're not going to care, right? Which leads me to the point. It's the relationship that you're going to build with this 100%. Person, right?
Yeah.
And now that you have this person in the bag, so to speak, and now they're part of your system here, where I can now go, hey, let's say I call you, Jesse, and you're the recruiter, and you say, yeah, cool, Rafa, I got you. I can provide some people. Let's put one in there. And then they bring a nurse in, and then the nurse just has a shitty, miserable time, right? I still got the contract with you, but you're never going to give me anything again, right? Because there's not only that, right? Let's just say the nurse had a shitty time, but I never try to solve a problem. I never even reach out to you, nothing. I just leave you blank because I think I got the contract, and now that's it. It's over. Now I'm just going to get you to book me all the time because I'm on your database. But let's say let's flip it around, and now you go, yeah, Rafa, I got you. Let me send a nurse your way. And I go, hey man, thank you so much for doing it. And I start building the relationship with you, and I text you every here and there. Hey, I just want to check in. How's the nurse doing? Has she gone back to you? On our end, she's showing that she's happy. Is there anything extra that we can provide? And you start building that relationship. Do you obviously, is in comparison to I never talk to you again, you're not going to think of me every single time, right? So do you do anything special, like specific, that stands out to build that relationship with these recruiters or the person in charge of that?
Dude, so my job before, I would go into hospitals and literally like take Starbucks to they're called case managers. That's what my job. I was like there to butter them up. So I do the same thing, dude. I'll send a recruiter. I just did this out to a recruiter. His name was Michael in Utah. I'm not going to say the agency because you guys are all going to call him. So I send them like Starbucks. I'll send them their drink, the drink that they want, or I'll send them donuts. What's that company called that has the freaking, I forget what it's called, but I'll send cookies. No, they're cookies. Like they're like this like cookie company. It's huge. But anyway, but that's a good thing too. So you can get that information. Like when you start connecting with these people and you exchange email, it'll say what office number, what suite number they're in, where their location is. You know, you get that information and you get something from them, you send them something. And then I also put all the recruiters into a tickler email. So every month I'll send them an email of like, hey, I got a new property. Here's what it is. And you brought something up earlier. If they're having like a bad time in the place, you can't just, get some apartment that looks like crap and you decide you expect them to do well. Like you have to think about your rental just like a short-term rental. These people are coming and they want to basically feel like they're on vacation and be comfortable in your space. Some of these medical professionals are traveling from 3,000 miles away and they want to be in a place that's comfortable. So you have to have a place that's like actually comfortable. And it's cool. And it has, aesthetics to it where it feels like, they're home. So those are things you really got to think about. You can't just pick up any place and throw it on there because you're not going to be able to get top dollar for that. And not only that, but you're not going to be able to get the recurring, travelers that are coming, or maybe that positive thumbs up from the nurse to the recruiter. So okay, that's awesome. I mean, building a relationship is obviously key. Now I want to touch on something else you said, which is the way the place looks or the location of the place. How important is it with that? Because with me, people, like, one of the questions they go, hey, how much do you spend on a 1-bedroom apartment to furnish the place? Well, there's no set number. It's based on the type of customer I want to bring in, right? If I want the cheap budget traveler, then I go cheap on my unit. If I want the expensive traveler, then I go a little bit higher end in my unit. With you, what's the sweet spot for medical professionals and nurses? Because we know that some of them, and as they should, right? Not talking anything bad about it, they do try to budget and save money and try to be a little cheaper on the rent side, right? But when it comes from a recruiter, you might get top dollar anyway. What's the sweet spot on how the place should look, the type of location you should get, and the amount of money you should spend on these properties? Do you have something on top of your head that you can share? Yeah. So you've heard me talk about the hybrid model before, right? Yeah. So I look at this. A lot of gurus will say, go after that one specific type of person. You just said it a second ago. I always have an exit plan. So I'll buy something with the idea that I'm going to put a recruiter in, or put a travel medical professional in there, and I can switch it over to a short-term rental during my peak seasons to make more money than I can during the winter months. So I can literally house both types of people. That. And I'm always going to keep my, how we have peaks and valleys, right, Rafa, with our money. Like January, February, March, we usually are slow. Then April, May, June, July, we pick up, and then November, December, it trickles down. When you do this model, you're going to have, you're consistent for your entire year. You're not going to have any dips. You're not going to have a $3,000 difference, 4 months out of the year. You're going to stay where you're at. You're going to stay in that same kind of in that same, area. So I think about it like that. And usually like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I'm probably looking at about $15K. That's what it's going to cost to get into it. 2-bedroom, maybe, actually 3-bedroom is probably going to be around 20, and a 2-bedroom is going to be around 15. But again, if you get a traveler in there and you get a $5,000, I mean, that first 15 days is going to cover your entire, is going to cover your rent, and then you're almost going to pay your first initial investment in. So,
yeah. So we're pretty similar in what we spend, because my 3-bedroom house cost me about 18 grand, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this as well, because what you just said is gold. My February month for this house, dude, I've had 3 bookings, right? We're already, what day is it today? The 10th. I booked for 2 weekends only. They're good bookings though. They paid about $400 a night, so it's fine. I know I'll at least break even, but I don't want to go unbooked, 70%. Yeah. But in July, I know I'll be booked. I mean, 100% at a stupid, like extremely good rate, right? But in this off season, I want to be able to have these contracts in the bag so that I can offer it to them. Which actually leads me to my next question, dude. Do you think putting a 3-bedroom house on Furnished Finder is a good idea, or should I just keep it to the 1-bedrooms that I have? Because in my head, I'm thinking I want a house just a single traveler come into my 1-bedroom. But can I find multiple people traveling together on a 3-bedroom house on Furnished Finder?
Yeah, so we just talked about that. You have a niche within a niche. So you have the travel medical niche, and then you have the niche of we just talked about millennials traveling together, right?
But yeah, no, I get that part. I know I can get them, but can I find them on Furnished Finder is what I'm saying. Like, or do I have to go like this? But okay, got it. That's what I'm asking.
So here's what I love about Furnished Finder too. We didn't talk about this. So you not only get travel medical professionals, you'll also get construction companies reaching out to you. You'll get the insurance companies reaching out. So you'll get connections just based off of Furnished Finder because they're looking for longer term stays, and typically it's a lower rate. But that's where you build the relationships in there, and you bring in the add-on values and the opportunities, and you bring your persona into communicating with people. So it's just there's just a lot of potential in there. There's more pros than there is cons for sure.
Got it. Cool, man. So I'm definitely gonna put it up there then now.
I would, man. I've been telling you this forever.
I know. So it's funny because my VA, she's the one that actually put my 1-bedroom up there, and she does everything for me now. She knows how to run this entire business by herself. And so she did my 1-bedroom, but I'm gonna have her put up the 3-bedroom, and I'm gonna have her start actually mining the data, as you call it, right? Data mining. Yeah, and seeing if we can get this place booked up, because I'm curious as to how it's gonna go. I really want to jump in on this. So cool, Jesse. I mean, dude, we're at the top of the hour. So I mean, what do you want to talk about here to close it off? Normally it's like, hey, what's your big break? But I already know what it is. So
yeah,
the listeners already know what it is. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to give away here before we shut down this episode here?
Yeah, I mean, really do your research on their markets. Really think about what you're getting into. Think about who you want to serve. I know we talked about that earlier, but think of an exit option. We just talked about serving 2 different people. And I think that's where short-term rentals are going, man. We're going to look at things in a different way. We're going to have peak months where we're going to stick to short-term rentals, and then we're going to have other months where we're going to flip that property into a 30-day stay. And to be honest with you, dude, the travel medical professionals, it's truly like more of a passive income. You're not dealing with the day-to-day flips or the day-to-day turns. You're not dealing with, the expenses aren't as much. So you have, you that has, 40, 50 units, if half of those units were travel medical professionals, you wouldn't be spending as much money at all. So your overhead would be way lower than what it actually is now, which in turn would give you more money. So, the travel medical professionals, they come in there, dude, I don't even hear from them. I'm actually the ones checking in on them. So it's not like short-term rentals where you got so many things to do. So for me, the travel medical professionals, it's way more of a passive source of income. But no, I mean, if you guys are interested in this, like I said, I break this down into a 3-week course. I talk about it in detail. We have calls every week. You guys can follow me on Instagram and check that out, which, if you guys are listening to this on YouTube, there'll be some information on there. And then I also have a YouTube channel where I talk about this stuff a little bit more. And it's just not only midterms, but a lot of it is right now. But anyway, check that out. And I mean, man, I just love talking about this stuff because there's so much opportunity. It's here now. COVID exposed it. We're seeing the way that the shift of the market is turning. So it's up to us to make that decision to move in that direction, man.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, you heard it here. Talk to Jesse about the midterm rentals and about the medical contracts, because listen, everybody listening to me and watching, before you ask me next time, right? Hey, what do I say to the landlords to get approved? Listen to this episode again, because Jesse just gave you the answer, right? Learn how to find the people, house those people, stick to those people, and actually follow through with your promise of who you're going to house, right? So with that being said, Jesse, man, thanks for sharing. I know, we had to keep it very, very general and very like a overview, right? Kind of like a eagle view. What do they say? Bird's eye view?
Bird's eye view,
of
yeah.
Everything. Yeah. Because we only had an hour. So,
yeah.
But if anybody wants to jump in on it, you guys know where to go, and we'll put it on the show notes. It's already in our show notes anyway. With that being said, man, yeah, thanks for sharing. Any final thoughts, and let's just say goodbye and on to the next episode.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, y'all. Hope you guys got value from this. Adios.